Welcome back to OpenLine. Thank you for being with us on this rainy Monday night. I'm so glad you're sitting in front of the TV. We are talking about finding a job, keeping a job, maybe even looking for a better job, even if you're in a good paying job. What about those folks who are maybe midlife, been doing a job for a decade or two and say, done this? I'm kind of done with it.
Yep.
I want to do something else. What's your advice?
I get that call a lot, actually, from I'm kind of reaching age that's kind of my friends or spouses of my friends, and it's absolutely doable. And you got to remember a couple of things. If employers just hired the people who had the most number of years of experience on their resume, guys like me wouldn't have jobs. So thankfully they don't. And 9 times out of 10 they don't. I mean, it's rare that it's just the person who has the most experience. This is one of those. There's 2 things you got to consider. One is the sense of transferable skills. So be realistic. Here's my skill set. So sales makes sense, accounting makes sense, HR and healthcare isn't that different from HR and IT. So I mean, it's kind of how closely related they are. But I've got friends who, hey, I was a head of sales. I was really successful at that. I know exactly the same. I want to go run a nonprofit. Okay, that's a pretty wide gap because there's people professionally who've grown up the ranks on this side who have been the director and the development director, and now they are, frankly, more qualified. More qualified to do the job you want to do. But I looked at somebody and I said, what you need to look at is the development role at the nonprofit. If you want to go run a nonprofit, nothing's more important than the person who produces cash.
True.
So go and be the development person. Prove your worth there. It may not be the job you want, but man, you're going to know every donor. You're going to know every major player. You will be embedded with that organization. And all of a sudden now, when there's a new CEO or CEO at Lord, I mean, she knows everybody in town that does what we need. We need her running our organization. That's how you do it. I mean, that thing is get it as close as you can, transferably. The other thing that frankly more people get themselves caught up in is economics. They go, I can't. I don't know. I've never figured out the right answer. I make $100,000 here. I'm miserable at what I do. Okay, well that's not the worst thing to be miserable about.
Right.
I want to go do something over here. My calling is this over. I want to go be a youth pastor, whatever that calling is. Man, I can't live on $30,000. I can take a little. Everybody's like, oh, I can take a little bit of a haircut, but I'm like, well, look at the guy who's hiring for that job. It may not just be okay. It may just not work. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it may not work. Another way, maybe creatively, to solve that, especially if you're embedded in a role or you want to go do some, people tell you to do volunteer work or take a lower level. It might be time to do the second job thing. So, hey, I'm doing this, but I want to get, for instance, my wife and I, we own an event business. Whether I want to run events, I have no idea. Whether she wants to run, I have no idea. But we do it because, A, it makes money, and we enjoy doing it. And so if I ever want to wake up and go run an event company for somebody else, I'm like, I've got a lot of experience. Just like career coach. I mean, if there's ever any money in career coach, I haven't seen it in 10 years. But I enjoy doing it. But I mean, I that's one of those things. I'm like, can it lead to other things? Could I go be a career coach at the Belmont University or Lipscomb University? Probably would be pretty darn well qualified to do it if I wanted to do that. I don't. So I mean, I look at that and go, get a little creative. Kind of go, hey, can I work part-time and get some interest, or do I go have a little business that may be in the same space so I can kind of learn real life experience? But to say, hey, I was doing this for $100,000, I want to go do something vastly different for $100,000 because I can't take a pay cut, is frankly not in line with reality.
You backed yourself in a corner.
And you have. You've kind of created a zero-sum game. And great, you've gotten yourself stuck in your own corner. So I mean, I think frankly it's one of those creative moments that people just kind of go, hey, I'm used to having a job, and I go get another job. And the future of employment, now if we're going to sit here doing this 10 years from now or 20 years from now, it's going to be a freelancer's world. It's going to be more and more companies. You'll see you'll see recessions. In the last recession, what's happened kind of fundamentally, instead of having a bunch of employees, you have companies who think about core employees and then kind of very flexibility as the economy goes up and down, so they don't feel bad they had to lay off a third of their workforce because we got ramped up and we're used to making $100 million. Well, in reality, next year we might be at 80. We got to lay off a third of the people. I'd rather have a company geared to have 50 million employees that service $50 million. I'll go hire freelancers or independent contractors or so, individually or through other companies, and give me some variability in my economics personally. and that's where I think you're going to see more and more people live in that kind of variability of the employment landscape. And so the answer there is you got to keep skills going. You got to keep investing in, even if you've got a gig, you've got to invest in your skills and invest in your network. And so few people do that. It's bizarre to me. We all know that.
Right.
We don't.
It's taking the effort to do it.
That's right.
Let's talk to Stephen. He's been hanging on the line. Stephen, thank you for being with us tonight. What's your question?
Yeah, my question was, I have a master's in education, and I've been a school teacher for about a dozen years or so, and I want to transfer out of that. I'd like to make a little bit more money and use those skills. I was curious how a master's in education would be perceived by other jobs in the area, and what a good job, fit would be for that master's in education.
So a couple things. You're just saying it, so I'm going to give you kind of my first thought. Corporate trainers. Now, granted, when the economy's good, there's more of those. So, but the guy knows how to teach.
Yeah.
Whether it's 8-year-olds or 28-year-olds, the idea is I understand concept and how adult education theory, and there's so many online resources. So don't just bind yourself to the physicality of Nashville, Tennessee. The other kind of trend you're going to see is remote kind of workforces, so flexibility and remote ability. So there might be a job at a company in California that would be, they're going, oh, we got to pay, somebody here in San Francisco $180,000 to do this job, where this got to be happy as a clam at $80,000. And so I look at it and go, anything that's kind of corporate training, educational based. So that's my first swing, kind of understand that.
Makes sense, yeah.
My second swing is something that's a periphery that supports education. Like I know folks who worked as a teacher because you had to have classroom training. They now work for the folks who make the books.
Oh.
And those that industry's obviously moving to kind of more iPad, kind of less physical books, but still this content.
Sure. And
it's how it's delivered and how it's interpreted. The next thing is like, what about consulting? There's all these other kind of smaller school districts cropping up. What do you think of? What are they called?
The charter schools?
Charter schools.
Yeah.
What do you think of them regardless? They still need educators.
Yeah.
And you go, hey, maybe there's a consultant that bridges that. So, I think you start thinking about what am I good at, which is communication and getting people to understand stuff they didn't understand that day. So I think there's a lot of things that translates to, and again, it's not an apply on the job online. I see a corporate training job, and I'm going to apply online for that. They will not call you. You need to call the company, figure out who works there, or maybe even better yet, on LinkedIn, you know somebody that works there, and you're asking for an introduction and say, hey, I may not be the obvious choice, but let me explain why I might be.
I like that.
And you're trying to set up a meeting. You're not trying to get a job. Do you mind if we sit down? I've got some thoughts around that. Would like to see your reaction to my interest in that skill set, and maybe you can give me some insight that kind of points me in another direction. So I think it's like it's taking the steps forward, knowing what you may not know where they lead, and we don't know what we'll be doing in 5 years from now, but Lord, we're going to keep taking steps in some direction. And so I look at that guy and go, hey, get out there. I mean, you got this, assuming he's still working, you got this wonderful thing called the summer off.
Right.
Use it smart. Take one summer and go, I'm just going to meet everybody in town. And here's the type of people I want to meet, and these are the type of jobs I want. Invest your time. So I think something like that's a great thing about being teachers. Either, I'd love to have 2 months off, but use it efficiently if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Good answer. I like that. Hopefully that will help you out. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to wrap things up with some words of advice. Stick around.